If you want to create any change or growth in your life, it always begins with this one rule. Whether you want to create change in, say, a relationship or work or fitness, it always begins with this one thing, whether it begins with this subconsciously or whether you do it consciously, it always begins with what I'm about to share with you. Recently, I posted this. I said, raise your standards. Now, what I've learned in life is that you don't get what you deserve, you get what you expect. So let's start with, what do you expect of yourself? And this is the one thing. Whatever change you want to create in your life, it is always preceded by a shift in your expectation. A shift in your standards, when you raise your standards, is always because you change your expectation. It always happens this way. There's no way that any change happens without first a change in standards, which is preceded by changing your expectations. Now, when a lot of people commented on this post to say, yes, I agree, I want to raise the standards in my life, it made me think of a famous saying or a common saying when it comes to teaching negotiation. And that is that a yes without a how is not a real yes. And what that really means is that a commitment without a plan, without a how to, is not a real solid commitment. Just think about it. If you're in a negotiation with someone, and let's be honest, we're always negotiating with ourselves the entire time, right? When we're in a negotiation, if somebody says that they're making a certain commitment, but they can't articulate to you exactly how they're going to follow through and fulfill their commitment, that's not a real and solid commitment. And the same applies to when we want to make changes in ourselves. I don't believe that people go out there making commitments with the intention to never fulfill on them. But most people never take that single step, that extra step of just becoming clear on what the plan is, how they're going to fulfill that. So the same applies to ourselves, right? If you really want to knock the ball out of the park for this year and achieve all your goals and have an unexpectedly amazing year that's full of positive change, then I want to give you 3 things that you need to do to raise your expectations, which is going to help you raise your standards and absolutely nail it this year. And it all comes around expectation. So point number 1 is, believe that you are a person of high expectation and high standards. My question to you is, what do you believe about yourself? Have you ever heard of the term self-limiting beliefs? Now, usually these are unconscious. These are unconscious beliefs. We don't realize that we have certain beliefs about ourselves. Do you know that most of us form beliefs about who we are and what we're capable of when we're children? We've already made that decision. So we grow up into adult life still maintaining these beliefs, and they become the glass ceiling on our potential. It dictates what we think we can do, the actions that we take, the expectations that we have for ourselves. And so as you start to become aware of these self-limiting beliefs and you start to break through them, naturally your expectation of yourself and your standards will begin to rise. Now, this doesn't happen overnight because, like I mentioned, self-limiting beliefs are often unconscious, right? They've been conditioned into us over a lifetime, often since we're children. So to start developing that sense of self-awareness takes practice. Things like my mentality training exercises that I teach as part of high performance mentality. Just short bursts of starting to become aware of the contents of consciousness, of what's actually going through your mind. But even if you just spend 5 to 10 minutes a day of just, silent self-reflection and just start to observe your thoughts, your emotions, and the key here is to do that non-judgmentally, just to start to observe, just to become a witness of what's going on in your mind, you'll be surprised at the thoughts, the self-limiting thoughts and beliefs that are going through without you ever realizing it. So that's number 1. Number 2 is spend as much time as possible with other people who have high standards. I'm sure that you've heard the saying, I think it was Zig Ziglar who said it first, but I may be wrong. But it's basically that you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And the reason why that's true is that without even realizing it, subconsciously, and you know that as a mentalist, I'm obsessed with what influences us without us realizing that it's influencing us. And the people who you spend your time with, without even realizing it, you are absorbing their perspectives, their ideas of the world, their expectations of you, you're all of that stuff, you are just almost like through osmosis, you don't realize it. And all of a sudden, you're going to start seeing the world that way. You're going to see yourself that way. There's an interesting saying that comes from Eastern philosophy, which is that I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. I'm who I think you think I am. All right, I'll say that again. I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am. So be really careful of the people who you're around and what they're expecting of you. You want to be around people as much as possible who have super high expectations of themselves and of you, right? And so you want to absorb all of that. You want to also be around people who give that sense of accountability. You feel you want to raise your expectations and you feel accountable that when you say to one of them, this is what I want to do, you feel like now you're accountable to that person. That's an amazing force in nature, accountability. The opposite is true as well. That if you're around people who have low expectations of themselves, then without even realizing it, because you like them, because they're your friends, because these are people who maybe you've grown up with, what you start to do is to lower your standards. You start to lower your expectation because it makes other people feel uncomfortable. You want to work and be disciplined and sometimes have to say no to chilling, and people are like, leave your work, come chill with us, come spend time with us. You will, without even realizing it, you'll start to lower your standards and your expectation to match those of the people around you. So that's number 2, which is spend as much time as possible with people who have high expectations of themselves and of you. And that segues perfectly into number 3, which is you should have high expectations of the people who are around you, the people who you interact with. It's a famous law in psychology that people will rise to the level of expectation that is put upon them. This is why many relationships are basically self-fulfilling prophecies. Because if you've got a high expectation, usually people will fulfill that. And if you've got a low expectation, if you've got a low expectation of someone in say, a relationship, not just a personal relationship, also a work relationship, if you've got a low expectation of what someone's going to bring to the relationship, and they meet that low expectation, what do you expect? That's what's going to happen. Now, paradoxically, when you start to raise your levels of expectation with people, yes, you've got a better chance of people producing more, but also you've got a higher chance of being disappointed. And that's perfectly okay. That's going to happen. Whenever we change and grow in life, there's some people who we're going to leave behind. And that is natural. That's to be expected. But that's not a good reason to keep your expectations low of everyone else. I see a lot of people saying, I just don't expect anything of anyone. I only expect of myself. Now, listen, there's a kernel of truth in that. Yes, we need to take responsibility for our own life. We can't rely, giving high expectation to somebody else, expecting high standards of other people, is not about becoming reliant on them. It's not about trying to force them to be of high standards. It's not about trying to change people in our lives. If people in your life are not raising themselves to the level of the standards that you expect, then you can't put all of your happiness and make them responsible for all of your happiness and all of your success. You are still responsible for all of that. You are also responsible for the people who are in your life. If you need more people who in your life who have got high standards and high expectations of themselves and others, then it's your responsibility to get those people around you, for you to be around those people. It is not other people's responsibility to change to your liking. And it's not for you to try and change other people. You can be a great role model. You can have high expectations of yourself and have high expectations of others, but it is other people's responsibility to raise to the level of expectation or to raise to the standards that they have of themselves, right? Of course, we just create a better probability of that happening when we have high expectations of the standards of the people around us. So there's that kind of balance of obviously having that high expectation, but also allowing people to be, and for us to take responsibility of the people who we have in our life. And when we raise our expectation, our standards, we'll naturally attract people who've got the same expectation and same standards, right? You're going to start finding new relationships in your life. All right, those are the 3 points, and they all allude to the one simple rule that any change or growth that you want to experience in your life is always preceded by a change in expectation and a raising of standards. So I'll just quickly recap the 3 points. Number 1 is believe that you are a person of high expectation and high standards, which of course starts with becoming aware of any self-limiting beliefs so that you can break through them. And that starts with self-awareness and practicing that through things like mentality training exercises. Number 2 is to spend as much time with other people who have high standards and have high expectations of themselves and others around them. And number 3 is for you to have high expectations of the people around you. And you're going to find that the moment you start changing that expectation within yourself, you're going to start to influence from the inside out your entire situation in life. And so let's be that for each other. Right? I want to have high expectations of you. In fact, I do have high expectations of you. The fact that you're watching this video, that you've taken this time out, means that you are a person who is consistently raising your standards. And I expect that you'll continue. And I want you to expect the highest of standards from me as well. So here's to your limitless life. Thanks for your attention watching this. And I look forward to raising our standards together.